So you made your point of view very clear. You don't agree with the U.S. government's position. Why do you think the FAA is holding out, despite the fact that the rest of the world is moving against us?
Well, I'm not quite sure. I think they obviously have stated the reasons why they don't feel that these planes need to be inspected and grounded until they are inspected. But if you look back during our time at DOT, when the Dreamliner had fires in the hulls as a result of lithium batteries, we consulted with the FAA and we consulted with Boeing, and we made a decision to ground those planes, have them all inspected, figure out how to fix it, and then, you know, they didn't like that decision at the time, but in the end, it turned out fine. And I believe the #1 priority for DOT has to be safety and making sure there's 100% certainty that these planes are safe. Now, I know the NTSB is on the ground, they're doing their investigation, but NTSB will take a year to figure out what happened. Right. We don't have a year. What we need to do is ground the planes, inspect the planes, and use FAA safety inspectors and Boeing safety inspectors collaborating together, figure out if there's something wrong, and if there's not, tell the public these planes are safe.
Well, I mean, the FAA has basically done that. They said our review shows no systematic performance issues, no basis to order grounding of the aircraft. Is there information about this that the FAA knows that other regulatory agencies around the globe do not?
Well, I think this. I think they're in the process of inspecting the planes, and they're in the process of checking out the technology, and they're in the process of the fix that they have proposed. But in order to give the public the assurance that the planes are safe, and I think if you went out on the street and did a man or woman interview on the street, people don't feel self-assured. There's not 100% certainty that these planes are safe. And there is one agency in the federal government that has this responsibility, and that's the Department of Transportation. Safety can never be compromised. Safety has to be #1, and the flying public deserves that.
Secretary, you've made the analogy with the battery problem in the Dreamliner, but you know, some say it's somewhat faulty that because we kind of knew, given the fires, very quickly what the source of the problem was, and then you needed to understand why it was happening and fix it. Whereas in this case, we still aren't certain at all of what the source of the problem even is.
Well, that's the reason they should be inspected, and they should get the smartest safety inspectors from FAA and Boeing in a room together around these planes, looking at the technology, particularly the new technology, and trying to figure it out. And that really, there's still some question about what caused these crashes, and until these planes are inspected by the smartest safety people from FAA and Boeing, I think the American public is not self-assured about this.
Although, Mr. Secretary, you're not suggesting that the grounding of planes should be the result of public polling on the street. I mean, Randy Babbitt, who ran the FAA, as you know, says that it sets a bad precedent to ground planes based on what he's calling speculation.
Well, it's not speculation. Talk to the families of the people who went down in the Ethiopian crash. You talk to those families and ask them if they wish those planes had been inspected. And the answer will be yes. I'm not suggesting a public polling. I'm suggesting that the agency that has the responsibility for aviation safety step up and carry out their responsibility. It's that simple.
Do you think, Secretary, I mean, people are just going to vote with their feet, and what will happen? In other words, they'll choose not to walk onto one of these planes. And if that is the case, and many of these planes are not filled up, and the airlines choose even to cancel flights, does that have an impact at all on how the FAA is thinking about this?
Well, what probably has had more of an impact is what Europe has done and what other countries have done in grounding these planes. That is going to, you know, that's going to cause some scheduling chaos.
No, I guess my question, though, was, will the FAA choose to listen to what people are choosing not to fly and therefore do what you're asking them to do?
Yeah, I wish the Department of Transportation and the FAA would step up and with the major responsibility they have to make sure that these planes are 100% safe and can assure the public of that. If that happens, there won't be any issues with people deciding what airline to choose.
Well, I mean, the secretary actually was spotted yesterday, Secretary Chow, taking one of these planes from Texas to Washington, D.C., from South by Southwest. So it doesn't look like they're moving that in that direction. Has there ever been a precedent historically for the FAA to make one major decision like this and the rest of the world, including our closest allies like the UK and Australia, to go the other direction?
Doesn't seem that way.
I mean, what are the implications of that?
The implications are that it's going to really mess up a lot of schedules for airlines.
What about the credibility of our institution?
Well, we'll see how all of that plays out. I believe that DOT has had a very strong reputation for safety, for standing up for safety, and I hope that will continue.
I think what Sarah's asking is, for basically all generations of aviation travel, the U.S. sets the standard for safety around the world, and to have the rest of the world basically buck us and Canada, is that reflecting some sort of underlying antagonism between our regulatory agencies and those of the international community?
Well, look, we'll have to see how it plays out. This has only been going on here for a couple of days. These planes have been grounded around the world just in the last few days, and we'll see how things develop.
One last thing. People have tried to make kick up some dust around the fact that the acting Secretary of Defense is a 30-year Boeing vet. You think some of this is political?
Absolutely not. I don't think it's political at all.
Finally, Mr. Secretary, should I be concerned? Should we be concerned about flying one of these planes if we have a flight booked on American or Southwest?
I would be.
Until further information.
No,
you would switch a flight.
Until you can be assured through an inspection by FAA and by Boeing that the planes are safe to fly.
But if it's, you keep saying inspection, I mean, this could, in the case of Lion Air, the question is about the software upgrade that the pilots may not have been properly trained on or a malfunction there. I mean, is an inspection going to show something in terms of how software is operating or whether the pilots were trained to operate properly with the new software?
Absolutely. They have these opportunities not only to look at the technology, but to talk to the pilots. And if the pilots have not been properly trained, to put that kind of training into place, if that's what's needed. And that may take a little more time than people really want, but if that's the answer, so be it.